Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Let's begin today's session. This is session 6 of our summer break revision of Bhagavad Gita shlokas and Mahabharata. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapreshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's recite Bhagavad Gita shlokas from chapters 7, 8 and 9. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, text 1. Let's recite. Sri Bhagavanuvacha Maya Saktamanah Partha Yogam Yunjadashrayah Asamshayam Samagrammam Yatha Gyasyasi Tachrinu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you will know me in full, free from doubt. 7.2 Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshyamya sheshatah yajgyatva neha bhuyonyaj gyatavyam avashishyate. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. 7.3 Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschin mamretti tattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. 7.4 Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kammano buddhireva cha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtadha. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego, altogether these 8 comprise my separated material energies. 7.5 Apareyam mitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. 7.6 Etad yonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagataha prabhavaha pralayastatha. All created beings have their source in these 2 natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. 7.7 Mattaha parataram nanyad kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. 7.8 Rasohamapsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo pranavaha sarva vedeshu shabdaha ke paurusham rishu. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and a in man. 7:10 Bijam mam sarvabhutanam viddhi partha sanatanam buddhir buddhimatamasmi tejas tejasvinamaham. O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. 7:11 Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshapha. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. 7:12 Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasa tamasascha ye matta eveti tan vidhi natvaham teshu te mayi. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. 7:13 त्रिभिर्गुणमयैर्भावैर् येभिः सर्वमिदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति मामेभ्यः परमव्ययम्. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. 7:14 दैवी ह्येषा गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतां तरन्ति ते. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. 7:15 Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya pahrita jnana asurim bhavamashritah. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. 7:16 चतुर्विधा भजन्ते मां जना सुकृतिनोऽर्जुना आर्तो जिज्ञासुर अर्थार्थी ज्ञानी च भरतर्षभा. O best among the Bharatas, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. 7:17 तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्ता एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. 7:19 बहूनां जन्मनामन्ते ज्ञानवान् मां प्रपद्यते वासुदेवः सर्वमिति स महात्मा सुदुर्लभः. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. 7:20 कामैस्तैस्तैर्हृतज्ञानाः प्रपद्यन्तेऽन्यदेवताः तं तं नियमम् आस्थाय प्रकृत्या नियता स्वया. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. 7:22 सतया श्रद्धया युक्तस् तस्याराधनमीहते लभते च ततः कामान् मयैवाभिहितान् हितान्. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, These benefits are bestowed by me alone. 723. Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedhasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. 724. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayah param bhavam majananto mama vyayam manuttamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. 725. Naham prakashah sarvasya yogamaya samavritah modhoyam nabhijanati loko mamajamavyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. 726. Vedaham samatitani वर्तमानानि चार्जुन भविष्याणि च भूतानि मां tu veda na kaschana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. 727. इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप. O Scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. 728. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Chapter 8, 8.5. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayaha. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. 8.6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. 8.7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha mayyarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyasya samshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. 8.8. अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन्. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. 8.14. अनन्यचेताः सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. 8:15 Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gataha. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. 8:16 Abrahma bhuvanaloka punaravartinorjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. 8:17 Sahasrayuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Janaha. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. 8:19 भूतग्रामः स एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यः रागमे. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. 8:20 परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यः स सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति. Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. 8:21 अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तस् तम् आहुः परमां गतिं यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम paramam mama. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. 8:28 वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपस्सु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Chapter 9, 9:1 श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्षसे शुभात्. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. 9:2 Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. 9:3 Ashraddhadhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. 9.4 Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavasthitaha. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. 9.5 Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhutabhrinna cha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. 9.10 मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरं हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. 9.11 अवजानन्ति मां मूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावं मजानन्तो मम भूतमहेश्वरम्. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. 9.12 मोघाशामोघकर्माणो मोघज्ञानविचेतसः राक्षसीमासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. 9.13 महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिताः आश्रिताः भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम्. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. 9.14 सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रताः नमस्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. 9.17 पिताहमस्य जगतो माता धाता पितामहः वेद्यं पवित्रमोङ्कार ऋक्सामायजुरेव च. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier of the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajurvedas. 9.21 ते तं भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालं क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति एवं त्रयी धर्ममनुप्रपन्ना गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. 9.22 Ananyaschintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. But those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. 9.23 Yepyanyadevata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaः yepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhipurvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. 924. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvena tascha vantite. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. 925. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitrivrataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajinopi mam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. 926. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tad aham bhakti upahritam ashnami pratadmanaha. If you offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. 927. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi, yad juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. 929. Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshyosti na priyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maite teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also in him. 930. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadhureva samantavyaha samyak vyavasito hi saha. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. 931. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. 932. Mam hi partha vyapashritya yepi syuh papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas and Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. 933. Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajarshayas anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. 934. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktaivam atmanam matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. That's the end of Bhagavad Gita recitation for today. Let's do Mahabharata now. So quickly, please tell me what you remember from what we read yesterday. Madhava?
Arjun, he shot the arrow at the target, and he also won the hand of Draupadi.
Okay, so Arjun participated in Draupadi's Swayamvara, and he shot the arrow at the target and he won the hand of Draupadi. Okay? Anything else? Anyone else?
And he also burnt the chariot of Angaraparna.
He burned the chariot of Angaraparna. Okay? Anyone would like to add any points to that?
The Pandavas accepted Dhaumya as their family priest.
Correct. The Pandavas accepted Dhaumya as their priest. So I'll just quickly say the points in sequence. So the Pandavas left Ekachakra, and after Baka was killed, first there was a Brahmana who came. He told about his travels, and then he told about the enmity between Drupada and Drona, how Draupadi and Drstadyumna were born, and how there's a Swayamvara being conducted for Draupadi. The Pandavas heard about this, and Kunti suggested that they should go. And on the way, they met. On the way they met Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva also said that Arjun should contend in this competition and he should win the hand of Draupadi. So they went there, but on the way they were heading in that direction, and on the way they had to. In the night, they arrived at the banks of the Ganga. They were looking for a spot to cross the river, and this Gandharva Angaraparna comes out of the water, and he challenges Arjun. He's upset with them. Why you are coming here? This is my time, Gandharva's time. And then he started attacking Arjun. So Arjun simply with a torch, he countered all the arrows, and then he used his Agneastra and he threw it at Angaraparna. His whole chariot got burnt. So Angaraparna was Chitraratha, one with a beautiful horse, and now he became Dagdaratha, one with a beautiful chariot. Now he became one with a burnt chariot, like that. So then Angaraparna was very impressed with Arjun's power, and Arjun actually dragged him, held him by the hair, brought him to the feet of Yudhishthir. And then Yudhishthir said, "What will I punish? Someone who's already defeated in battle." And his wife came. She was begging to please spare her husband. So he said, "One who's being, protected by a woman, what will I punish you? You can go," like that. So anyway, Angaraparna offered to give Arjun the Gandharva Vidya, and also he wanted to give him very powerful horses. So Arjun didn't take it. He said, "I don't need charity, and I don't want anything in exchange for sparing your life, because that I did it on the order of my brother." But Angaraparna said, "No, I want to learn that I want to learn how to use that weapon, fire weapon, Agneastra from you. So please, that's why I'm offering this to you. Take." So Arjun said, "Okay. First of all, you tell me why you attacked us." And anyway, Angaraparna, he said, the whole pastime happens there. And after the whole thing, he spent all night and he told them many stories, about the history of the Pandavas. And then just before dawn, before leaving, he said, "The reason you were able to defeat me was because you were a celibate. You never had any a connection with a woman. That's why you were able to defeat, even though Gandharvas are superior to men. But even if you were to be a married person, still you could defeat a Gandharva if you had a self-controlled powerful Brahmana as your priest." And then the Pandavas asked, "Can you suggest who can be our priest?" And he suggested Dhaumya and where he stayed, so on. So after Angaraparna left, the Pandavas went looking for Dhaumya. They found his ashram. He was also very pleased by their, he was very much attracted to them. They were devotees. So then he agreed to be their priest. With Dhaumya, they all headed towards Panchala, where Draupadi's Swayamvar was going on. And they reached there, and it was a 15-day long festival with so many celebrations, performances, prasadam, right? And after 15 days, on the 16th day, actually Draupadi made her appearance. Everyone saw her for the first time with her garland. And when she came out, and of course there's a description of that the arena that was built, the stadium that was built, and the seating arrangements and everything, and also the demigods, they came from top, stationed in their chariots, they came to witness. Even great sages like Narada Muni came there to witness this Swayamvara. Krishna was there, Balaram was there, Duryodhana with all his brothers were there. So many kings from all over. So then when Draupadi came in, everyone was amazed. All the kings, they just stood up looking at her and brandishing their swords, saying that she's mine, like that. Anyway, Drstadyumna came and he made announcements, and then everyone sat down and he said, "This is the challenge. Anyone who is able to pierce the target." So there's a description of that challenge. There's a pole, and on top is the target, and underneath is a rotating plate, and in the plate is one hole, small hole. So the plate is rotating. When the hole coincides with the target, at that point you should shoot your arrow through that hole and go and hit the target. That was the test. And also there's a special bow that was kept and special arrows. You are supposed to shoot only with that bow. So many kings came forward, but they were not able to even pick up. Well, this with great difficulty they managed to pick up, but they could not. When they tried to tie the string, bend it a little bit, it would spring back and they would fall. And then they would be embarrassed and they would go back to their seats like this. And finally, everyone failed. Nobody passed. So many came. Jarasandha came. Karna also came, but Karna was not even allowed to take part. Draupadi immediately exercised her free will and she said, "I'm not going to marry, a Suta Putra. My garland is only for a Kshatriya. I'm not going to accept him." So then he also felt embarrassed and insulted. He went and sat back. So everyone, nobody was able to do. Then Drupada was looking around. Remember also when Draupadi and Drishtadyumna appeared in the fire, in the sacrificial fire, there was this announcement, Akashvani, that Draupadi was going to marry Arjun. So Drupada arranged this whole thing for Arjun. So he's looking, where is Arjun? Where is Arjun? Or is Arjun still there? Right? So everyone failed. And then this Brahmana comes up. So Arjun, taking the permission of Daumya Muni and his brother, Yudhishthir Maharaj, he comes forward and thinking of Krishna, right? And uh, so at first, the Brahmanas were cheering, whereas the older Brahmanas were thinking, if he fails, then the whole Brahmana community will be insulted. This is not good. He should not be allowed to go. And others were again protesting, and they were saying, "What are you thinking about Brahmanas? Even if he didn't have physical power, Brahminical power is far superior than Kshatriya power. Physically, he may or may not have, but by his Brahma Tejas, he can actually defeat. So he should go." Then the elders sat down. And besides, Arjun's looking at his body, they could see he was very powerful. Arjun went and he asked Drupad Maharaj, "Can I try, right, if you permit me?" And Drupada Maharaj thought, yeah, Brahmanas, yes, why not? Right? Kshatriyas are always obedient to Brahmanas. There's nothing bad if my daughter married a Brahmana. So he said, yes, go ahead. And Arjun actually shot, right? And there's a nice description of that. And then all the Brahmanas were very happy. Draupadi came and she put a garland, but all the Kshatriyas were very angry. They felt, first Duryodhana said, "This Drupada, he has, arranged this whole contest only to insult us Kshatriyas. We should take revenge." So Drupad Maharaj could see that there's going to be a battle. So immediately he arranged for his soldiers, and they actually started attacking. When Yudhishthir Maharaj saw that there is going to be some disturbance here, immediately he started walking out. And Arjun, followed by Draupadi, and they all went to the gate. They started heading towards the gate. But when the Kshatriya kings started attacking Drupad Maharaj, Yudhishthir Maharaj felt, now he's my father-in-law, I should protect him. So he sent Arjun and Bhimsen. So Arjun still had the bow, the bow which he used in the contest. He had it with him, and Drupad Maharaj supplied him with so many arrows, and Bhimsen simply uprooted a big sal tree. That was his weapon. And mainly Arjun was fighting with Karna, and Bhimsen was fighting with Shalya. and all the other Duryodhana and the other Kshatriyas were fighting with the Brahmanas who came with their water pots to fight and to defend their Brahmana friend. So anyway, finally they were all defeated. Karna was defeated, Shalya was defeated. Bhimsen knew uh, Shalya was his, Madri's brother, his stepmother's brother. So he didn't intend to kill, but he defeated completely. So then, after this whole thing, they walked away. And then they were all thinking, what should we do? So Krishna came forward. The Kshatriyas were thinking, let us first find out who he is, what is their lineage, so on and so forth. So Krishna came and said, this is just, this Brahmana, he fought, he won the contest in a fair way, right? He participated in the contest and he won Draupadi's hand. Why are you making a big scene out of it? I think you should let them go. And anyway, they were defeated and there was nothing that they could do. So everyone decided, yes, okay. They were convinced by Krishna's arguments and everyone walked away. So that's where we ended yesterday. And Isha has posted, oh, you didn't post it to everyone, just post it. So this is the list. You can actually do this at the beginning of the class, so people will have. So now we'll continue from there. Chapter 11. The Pandavas wed Draupadi. Bhima and Arjun, both bruised and bloody from the battle with the kings, turned and walked toward the stadium's southern gate. They were surrounded by Brahmins who praised them with great joy. With difficulty, the two brothers pushed their way through the crowd and out of the arena, appearing like the sun and the moon emerging from behind clouds. Some way from the stadium, by the roadside, the other Pandavas and Draupadi were waiting for them. Seeing them returning safely from the fight, they embraced the two heroes and together proceeded to the potter's house. At the house, Kunti had not accompanied her sons to the Swayamvar for fear of discovery. At the house, Kunti, who had not accompanied her sons to the Swayamvar for fear of discovery, was feeling great anxiety. It was past sunset, and her sons had still not returned. What could have delayed them? Perhaps the Kauravas had recognized them and had them killed, or maybe the Rakshasas had come together to avenge the killing of Hidimba and Baka. Kunti remembered Vyasadev's assurances. Could the great sage have been wrong? As Kunti sat in the still evening air, lost in thoughts of affection for her children, Arjun suddenly entered the hut and called out, "Oh, mother, we have returned, bringing excellent arms. Just see the wonderful jewel we have obtained today." Filled with relief and happiness to hear her son's voice, Kunti called back, "Share among yourselves whatever you have acquired." She looked up and saw Arjun enter her room accompanied by Draupadi, who immediately bowed low at her feet. The princess had discovered the identity of the brothers and was joyful to know she had been won by Arjun. She greeted the venerable Kunti queen with appropriate words of respect. When Kunti saw the white-robed princess bowing before her, she gasped in horror. "What have I done? How can you all share this woman?" Kunti caught the still smiling Draupadi by the hand and went out to see Yudhishthir. "My words have never been false. Indeed, I cannot utter untruth. When Arjun said he had brought arms, I had no idea he meant this princess, and I thus said, 'Share it among yourselves.' It must therefore be so. What then should be done?" Kunti felt her religious principles threatened. She valued truth above all else. Even in jest, she never lied. Fearful that her virtue had suffered a diminution, she looked anxiously at Yudhishthir. "Tell me, dear son, how my words may prove true, and at the same time this princess may not be touched by sin." It was virtually unheard of for a woman to marry more than one man. Marrying 5 men was unthinkable. Yudhishthir looked thoughtful. He consoled his mother and assured her that neither she nor Draupadi would be touched by sin, he turned to Arjun and said, "Dear Falguni, you have won this maiden. It is therefore proper that you marry her with due ritual. Kindle the sacred fire and accept her hand with the blessings of the Brahmins." Arjun was surprised. "O king, do not hurl me onto the path of the wicked. Your command is not consistent with virtue, in my view. How could I accept this princess in your presence while you remain unmarried? Surely you should accept her hand. Then, if you so command, Bhima may marry her, and only then myself and the twins." Hearing Arjun's respectful words, the other Pandavas glanced at Draupadi. They had all expected that she would become Arjun's wife, but as they looked at her, the Panchala princess returned their glances. All, all the brothers felt their hearts invaded by love. They had never seen such a maiden. It was as if she had been personally fashioned by the Creator himself. She was as resplendent as the goddess Lakshmi, Vishnu's eternal consort. Yudhishthir could understand his brothers' minds. He recalled Vyasadev's words. Even though he had advised Arjun to try to win Draupadi's hand, the sage had seemed to intimate that Draupadi should become the wife of all of them. Although rare, such an act need not be unrighteous if sanctioned by an authority like Vyasadeva, especially if it was performed in order to preserve some other higher religious purpose. If Draupadi became the wife of only one of them, it would most certainly create rivalry and dissension among them, and Kunti's words would also become false. This seemed to be a divine arrangement. Making up his mind, Yudhishthir said, "We shall all marry the blessed Draupadi." Upon hearing Yudhishthir's words, all the brothers became joyful. Yudhishthir was equal to their father Pandu. His authority was final. His word to them, non-different from an order given by the Supreme Lord himself. I'll say that again. His authority was final. His word to them, non-different from an order given by the Supreme Lord himself. Draupadi must surely become their wife. They all now glanced openly at her, and she looked down shyly. As they pondered the import of Yudhishthir's command, the potter came to inform them that they had visitors. Krsna and Balaram were at the door. The two Yadava heroes entered the room and saw Yudhishthir seated on the floor, surrounded by his brothers. With his powerful shoulders and well-developed arms, the handsome prince resembled Indra, sitting amid the principal gods. Krishna folded his palms and said, "I am Krishna, and this is Baladev, my elder brother." The Pandavas were delighted to see their cousins. They stood up at once, and Krishna touched Yudhishthir's feet in respect. He embraced Bhima and Arjun and received the twins' respect. Both Krishna and Balaram also touched Kunti's feet as she shed tears of happiness upon seeing them. After they had all exchanged appropriate greetings according to their status, the Pandavas gazed at Krishna. They marveled at how, although he was the supreme lord of the entire creation, he had accepted the role of a human being and was now their relative and friend. Krishna inquired after their welfare. Yudhishthir replied, "We are all well, O Krishna, but tell me, how did you manage to trace us?" Krishna smiled. "Fire is always visible, even when covered. Who but the Pandavas could have performed such feats at the Swayamvar? O conquerors of foes, by sheer good fortune you have escaped from the fire. By the same good fortune have Duryodhana's sinful plans come to nothing. Be blessed. May you grow in prosperity as a fire in a cave gradually grows and spreads itself around." May you grow in prosperity as a fire in a cave gradually grows and spreads itself around. Krishna then said he had best leave before he drew attention to the brothers and gave away their disguise. He and Balaram stood and left quietly. The Pandavas sat for some time thinking about Krishna. They were heartened by his show of support and encouragement. They felt sure they would soon be restored to their proper position in Hastinapur. Unknown to the brothers, Drishtadyumna had also followed them back and was now lying concealed near the hut. He watched in surprise as Krishna and Balaram came and went. Who were these Brahmins that the two all powerful Yadava heroes felt the need to visit? They must not be ordinary ascetics. Drishtadyumna cautiously moved closer and peered through the window. Kunti was in the middle of instructing Draupadi how to prepare the Pandavas' meal. She told the princess that after having offered the food to the Lord and giving a portion to the Brahmins, she should divide what was left into two parts. She should then give one half to Bhima and divide the rest between the other four brothers and themselves. Drishtadyumna watched as his sister cheerfully did as she was instructed, giving half of the food to the huge-bodied youth who had thrown Shalya down in the arena, and distributing the remaining to the others after they had all eaten. So he was hearing also, right? So Kunti ji didn't take the name Bhima or what? Well, Bhima, I guess, could be others also, maybe. So, and distributing the remainder to the others. After they had all eaten, they lay down to sleep on beds of deerskins spread over soft grass, their heads pointing toward the south. Kunti lay across the line of their heads, and Draupadi lay at their feet. Drishtadyumna saw her smiling in great happiness as she accepted her new, apparently humble position. As they lay there, the brothers began to speak together. From his position at the window, the prince heard them talking about celestial weapons, chariots, elephants, bows, arrows, and swords. They discussed the battle with the kings in the stadium, laughing as they described how Bhima and Arjun had routed the bellicose monarchs. The prince had seen and heard enough. It was obvious that these men were powerful warriors. Surely they were royalty in disguise. Drishtadyumna quietly left and went back to his capital to inform his father of everything he had witnessed. Back in Panchala, King Drupada was anxious. His beloved daughter was gone, but he did not know who had taken her. He pondered on the day's events. Who was that man who had hit the target? Was he really a Brahmin? Maybe it had been simply by luck that he had succeeded in the test. Perhaps he was a Vaishya or even a Shudra, casting Drupada's noble line into disrepute. Or maybe he was a great hero of the royal order. Then why would he have disguised himself as a Brahmin? Perhaps he was actually Arjun, somehow survived from the terrible fire at Varanavat. Surely that was too much to hope. As the king was sat absorbed in thought, his son entered his chamber. After bowing at his father's feet, the prince described everything he had seen. Drishtadyumna was convinced it was the Pandavas who had won Draupadi, and he happily explained how he had followed them to a hut on the city's outskirts, how Krishna and Balaram had visited, and how he had heard them speak the language of warriors. The two Brahmins who fought in the hall left and joined three others. They appeared to be brothers. In their midst was a lady who shone like fire. I believe she is their mother. They spoke together in voices as deep as black thunderclouds. There is no doubt that these men are neither Shudras nor Vaishyas. They are certainly of the royal order. In my opinion, they are the Pandavas, who are living in disguise since escaping Varanavat. Drupada was extremely pleased by his son's words. As soon as dawn broke, he called for his priest and asked him to go to the potter's hut to ascertain the Brahmins' identities. The priest left at once and, arriving at the hut, applauded the Pandavas for their prowess. Then he said, O worshipable ones, the great King Drupada desires to know your names. Please tell me your family name and race. Are you by any chance the Pandavas? It was ever the king's wish that his daughter be united with Arjun. If this has transpired, then nothing could be more conducive to our fame and virtue. Yudhishthir turned to his brothers and said, Bring water and wash this Brahman's feet. He is worthy of our worship. Because he is Drupada's royal priest, we should especially respect him. Bhima immediately did as his elder brother had directed. He had the priest sit comfortably, then offered him argya. Yudhishthir then said, O Brahman, the king fixed a certain price for gaining his daughter. She was not given freely. Therefore, he has nothing to say about the lineage of the man who has passed his test. All his questions about our family and race have been answered by the stringing of the bow and the striking down of the target. So there's no need to give you any information about our lineage. Yudhishthir smiled. He assured him that Drupada need have no regrets. His long cherished desire would soon be fulfilled. Draupadi was clearly endowed with the auspicious marks of one who would be married to kings. The Pandava continued, what man of low birth or one unaccomplished in arms could have shot down the mark? It was done fairly, and there is no one who can now undo that act. The king should not grieve. As Yudhishthir spoke, another messenger arrived to tell them that a great feast had been prepared in the city. He asked the Pandavas to please come with him to the king's palace where the wedding ceremony could be properly performed. Yudhishthir assented, and the messenger showed the brothers to a couple of golden chariots which Drupada had sent. After placing Kunti and Draupadi on one of them, they mounted the other, and all of them left for Kampilya. The white steeds drawing the chariots soon brought them to Drupada's palace. As the Pandavas dismounted, they were greeted by the king's ministers, who led them to the hall where the feast was waiting. Headed by Yudhishthir, the brothers entered the vast chamber, which was spread with costly rugs. Many long tables lined the walls, which were studded with countless gems. On one table, the king had placed various items associated with Brahminical life, like sacrificial paraphernalia, holy books, and garlands. On another were items used by the Vaishya class, farming implements, ropes, seeds, and the like. On yet another were weapons, armor, shields, rockets, and other instruments of war, and expensive cloths, gold, ornaments, and other fine things of different types. Everyone gazed at the brothers as they strode into the hall. Seeing those powerful men clad in black deerskins, each with the gait of a sportive lion, broad shoulders, long and well muscled arms resembling serpents, eyes like furious bulls, the king and his relatives, ministers, and attendants were gladdened. Without hesitation, the heroes, in order of age, fearlessly sat upon seats of gold furnished with silk and provided with footstools. At once, well-dressed servants and maids fetched many kinds of delicious foods on gold and silver plates. The brothers dined with pleasure on the rich preparations brought before them, food worthy of kings. When the meal was over, they rose and went to the table containing the weapons and royal items. They carefully examined all the pieces, discussing them among themselves. To Drupada and his sons and counselors, it was obvious that the brothers belonged to the royal order. Drupada approached Yudhishthira and said, Sir, are we to know you as Brahmins or Kshatriyas of the royal order? Are you Vaishyas or even Shudras? Perhaps you are celestials who have assumed the disguise of Brahmins and are roaming the earth. Please, truly tell us. Truth becomes monarchs. Truth becomes monarchs even more than sacrifice or charity. That means it's the most important quality of a king, to be truthful. Once we have ascertained the order to which you belong, we can arrange an appropriate wedding ceremony. Yudhishthir looked at the king and smiled. He spoke in a deep voice, in a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds. O king, you may dispel your doubts and be cheerful. There is no doubt that your desire has been fulfilled. We five are royalty, the sons of the illustrious Pandu. I am Yudhishthir. Your daughter was won by Arjun, who, along with Bhima, fought with the other kings. She is like a lotus that has been transplanted from one clear lake to another. With Draupadi in the ladies' chamber is Kunti, our mother. Yudhishthir folded his palms and said that he had told the king everything that needed to be told. Surrounded by his brothers, he added, O king, you are our revered elder and superior. We now take shelter of you. Tell us what should be done. Drupada was filled with delight. Tears flowed from his eyes, and he was unable to speak. He stood for some moments with all his limbs trembling. Finally, he managed with great effort to suppress his joy. He said, O hero, I cannot express my happiness in words. Today my birth stands fulfilled, and my dreams are realized. This is indeed an auspicious day. Tell me, how did you all escape from the fire at Varanavat? Drupada and his two sons, Drstadyumna and Shikhandi, listened as Yudhishthir narrated the story. When he had finished, they censured Duryodhana and his weak father. Drupada gave every assurance to Yudhishthir, vowing that he would somehow restore him to his rightful position as king in Hastinapur. He gave the brothers accommodations in his own palace and treated them with all respect. The following day, Drupada again spoke to Yudhishthir. O mighty armed one, today is a day marked by favorable stars. Let Arjun take my daughter's hand with all due rights. Yudhishthir replied, O king, if my younger brother is to marry today, then I shall also have to accept a bride, for that is the religious ordinance. Drupada nodded understandingly. Then you must accept the hand of Draupadi in the sacred marriage ceremony, or give her to whichever of your brothers as pleases you. Yudhishthir said, The princess shall become the wife of all of us. Our mother has ordered this. It was Dhananjaya who won your jewel of a daughter, but the rule among us is that we share equally any jewels we obtain. Therefore, Draupadi may accept each of us, one after another, according to age. Drupada stepped back, his eyes wide with surprise. O mighty armed hero, I have heard that a man may accept many wives, but never that a woman may accept more than one husband. You are famed for your virtue. How then can you approve and act so contrary to tradition and indeed scriptural injunction? The king was surrounded by his sons and ministers, and they all listened carefully as the Pandava prince replied. He told them that morality was subtle and its application was dependent upon circumstances. Very important. Morality was subtle and its application was dependent upon circumstances. One therefore had to follow the authorities. His mother had ordered them all to marry the princess, and that order had found acceptance in Yudhishthir's mind, which had never entertained the thought of sin in his life. The prince was certain there would be no sin if Draupadi married all five brothers. Drupada was still not convinced. He wanted more time to think. It was entirely unprecedented that a woman could marry many men at the same time. He asked Yudhishthir if they could discuss the matter further with Kunti, Drstadyumna, and the learned Brahmins in his court. Yudhishthir agreed and sat in the king's council chamber for the discussion. They had only been speaking a short while when the palace attendants announced Vyasadev's arrival. As the sage was shown in, everyone present offered their respectful obeisances at his feet. Vyasadev greeted them in return and offered blessings to Drupada and the Pandavas. After they had taken their seats, Drupada asked, O illustrious one, is it possible for one woman to marry many men without being defiled by sin? Please tell me truly. Vyasadeva replied that such a practice was certainly opposed to both the direction of the Vedas and tradition. Although practiced in former ages, it had long become obsolete. The sage looked at Drupada and Yudhishthir and asked both of them for their opinions. Drupada revealed his doubts. He could not see any way by which the five brothers could all become Draupadi's husband. It would mean that the elder brother would be approaching his junior's wife. According to scripture, that would be the same as approaching his daughter. Yudhishthir replied that his heart, which could never turn to sin, felt no misgivings about the proposed marriage. He cited a historical example of a Brahmin girl named Jatila, who had married 7 rishis at once. There was also the case of the famous ascetics known as the Prachetas. They too, being brothers, had accepted one woman as their shared wife. These examples were found in the Vedas and were not considered sinful. In certain circumstances, even established rules may be broken in order to preserve a higher religious principle. Kunti agreed with her son and asked the sage how she could be saved from untruth. Vyasadeva replied, "O gentle lady, you shall certainly be saved from sin. This is eternal virtue." The sage turned to Drupada and said, "I wish to speak with you in confidence, O king." Vyasadeva rose and took hold of Drupada's hand. They went into the king's chamber while everyone waited outside. When they were alone, Vyasadeva explained to the king why the marriage conformed with virtue. The ascetic told Drupada that Draupadi had been the daughter of a rishi in a previous life. She had prayed to Shiva for a husband. In her prayer, she asked the deity 5 times for a powerful husband. Shiva had replied, "Since you have asked me 5 times, in your next birth you shall have 5 husbands." Shiva could not possibly ordain a sinful act. Vyasadeva further explained that the princess was an expansion of the goddess Lakshmi. She had appeared from the sacrificial fire in order to become the Pandavas' wife, who themselves had all been gods in their past lives. In fact, the sage explained, all the brothers had been incarnations of Indra in different millenniums. That means these 5 Pandavas had been Indra. They were Indras at different times. Okay? In one of the Manvantara, Yudhishthir Maharaj was Indra. Some other Manvantara, Arjun was Indra. Some other Manvantara, Nakul was Indra. Like that, all 5 of them had been Indras in the previous millenniums. Vyasadeva bestowed upon the king the divine sight to see the Pandavas as they had been in previous lives. In his inner vision, Drupada saw the blazing form of Indra that each brother had possessed, their celestial bodies adorned with golden crowns and garlands. Struck with wonder, Drupada folded his palms and said to the sage, "O great Rishi, there is nothing outside your knowledge or capabilities. My mind is now satisfied. What has been ordained by the celestials must always come to pass. We are all instruments in the hands of destiny. Let my daughter accept all 5 brothers as her husbands." The king and the sage rejoined the others and informed them of Drupada's change of heart. Vyasadeva said, "Today the moon has entered the auspicious constellation of Pushya. The first ceremony should be performed at once, and Yudhishthir can accept Draupadi's hand." Drupada ordered his ministers and priests to make all the arrangements. A sacred fire was lit in the vast inner courtyard of the king's palace. Rows of pennants bearing the emblems of the gods lined the sacrificial arena, which was full of Brahmins chanting hymns. A beautiful altar was constructed from coral and gold and bedecked with sparkling jewels. Fragrant garlands were draped everywhere, and the aroma of costly incenses wafted throughout the courtyard. The king, with his relatives and friends, took their places in the compound, which lay next to a large lake of lotuses. Citizens of all classes assembled in the courtyard to observe the ceremony. Brahmins with their heads covered by simple cloths, wealthy merchants shielded themselves from the bright sunshine with decorated parasols, and Shudras in their brightest clothes. All watched as the 5 brothers, dressed in silk robes and adorned with shining gold earrings, entered the compound like mighty bulls entering their pen. Dhaumya walked at their head. His bodily luster was as brilliant as the sun. He sat by the fire and offered libations of ghee. As the flames rose, he chanted mantras invoking the presence of Vishnu and the principal deities. Then he called Yudhishthir to come forward and accept Draupadi's hand. The dark-complexioned princess, clad in bright yellow silks and decorated with many precious jewels, her long curling hair adorned with flowers, stood to receive Yudhishthir. The bride and groom took each other's hand and walked around the sacred fire 7 times, sealing their union. On the days following Yudhishthir's wedding, each of the brothers married the Panchala princess. Vyasadeva informed the king that by the god's arrangement, his daughter regained her virginity each day after a marriage and before the next marriage took place. When all 5 weddings had been sanctified, Drupada sat before the sacred fire and gave the brothers charity. To each of them he gifted 100 golden chariots drawn by 4 excellent steeds, 100 mature elephants, and 100 maidservants adorned with ornaments and flower garlands. He also gave them large amounts of gold, various precious stones, and many valuable robes. Like so many celestials, the brothers began passing their days in joy in Panchala, the king's capital. For his part, having formed an alliance with the Pandavas, Drupada did not fear even the gods in heaven. After arriving back at Mathura, Krishna arranged for vast amounts of wealth to be sent as a gift to the Pandavas. Great heaps of unworked gold bricks and piles of precious stones, including numbers of priceless Vaidurya gems, soon arrived at Kampilya and were offered to the brothers. Costly carpets, robes, blankets, and skins were placed before them in piles. Krishna also sent them thousands of maidservants, all young, beautiful, and highly accomplished. Well-trained elephants and horses, as well as hundreds of chariots, were also presented. Out of love for Krishna, Yudhishthir graciously accepted the wealth and sent back a message of gratitude. Secure in the knowledge of Krishna's friendship and blessings, all the brothers felt their good fortune assured in every way. Chapter 12. Dhṛtarāṣṭra gives half the kingdom. As the kings left the Swayamvara for their respective countries, so Swayamvara, so wedding also happened. So those who came for Swayamvara, maybe they attended the wedding and they left. So as the kings left the Swayamvara for their respective countries, they marveled at what they had seen. The illustrious Pandavas were still alive. It was Arjun who had shot down the target and won the princess. And it was Bhima who had faced the kings with complete fearlessness and thrown down the mighty Shalya. The kings censured Bhishma and Dhṛtarāṣṭra for having allowed the Pandavas to be persecuted and deprived of their rightful kingdom. Duryodhana was depressed at this turn of events. As he made his way back to Hastinapura, he pondered on the situation. How had his cousins escaped the fire? Now they were more powerful than ever. So Duryodhana was also there in the wedding. That means, Isha, he was also there in the wedding.
Maybe, yeah.
Looks like. So Duryodhana was depressed at this turn of events. As he made his way back to Hastinapur, he pondered on the situation. How had his cousins escaped the fire? Now they were more powerful than ever. Allied with Drupada and Krishna, they were a force to be reckoned with. And their own prowess was obviously exceptional. Just 2 brothers had successfully taken Draupadi from the midst of hundreds of kings. Even the invincible Karna had been more than matched. Hot tears ran down Duryodhana's cheeks. By his side, Dushasana said consolingly, "Do not grieve, brother. It was only because the Pandavas disguised themselves that they managed to win Draupadi. They took us all by surprise. Clearly, destiny is supreme, and human effort is useless. Despite our exertions, the Pandavas are alive and flourishing." Duryodhana frowned. This is all the fault of that useless Purochad. He let us down badly. At least he perished in the fire. The Kauravas entered their capital sorrowful and ashamed. They were also anxious. Drupada was a powerful enemy. As Duryodhana entered his palace, he was met by Vidura. Hearing the news from Panchala, Vidura's face lit up with delight. Despite Duryodhana's machinations, the Pandavas were thriving. Surely the Lord was protecting those virtuous princes. Vidur went at once to Dhritarashtra and said, by good fortune, the Kurus have been successful and are prospering. The blind king replied joyfully, what luck! What luck! Not knowing that Vidur was referring to the Pandavas, he thought that perhaps Duryodhana had won Draupadi. He immediately ordered ornaments to be made for Draupadi and asked that she and Duryodhana be brought into the palace in great pomp. Then Vidur informed him of the facts. Draupadi had chosen the Pandavas for her lords, and now the five heroes were strongly allied with Drupada and his many relatives and friends. Dhritarashtra sat forward in surprise. This is wonderful news. Those boys are dearer to me than they were to Pandu. My affection for them is now greater than it ever was. Their success and good fortune is mine also. Vidura smiled. O king, may your present feelings remain for 100 summers. He then left to give the good news to Bhishma. The king was left alone with Duryodhana and Karna. Both had remained silent as Vidur had spoken. But as soon as he left, they jumped to their feet, loudly criticizing him. Clasping his sword in its ornate scabbard by his side, Duryodhana said, O best of men, how are you considering your good fortune to be our enemy's success? That is foolish. We need to weaken the Pandavas and deprive them of their fortune, not rejoice in it. Otherwise, they will surely swallow us all with our kinsmen, armies, friends, and wealth. Karna growled in agreement, and both he and Duryodhana stood in front of the king, waiting for his reply. Dhritarashtra was silent for some time. Finally, wringing his hands, he said, I desire exactly as you desire. However, I did not want to reveal my feelings to Vidur. He should not even be able to know what I am thinking by my demeanor. Therefore, I praise the Pandavas in his presence. The king asked Duryodhana how he and Karna planned to handle the situation. The prince replied that they should employ every diplomatic and devious means to bring about the Pandavas' downfall. He suggested that spies be employed to create disunity between the five brothers, or that Drupada and his ministers be swayed from supporting the Pandavas by tempting them with wealth. Perhaps Draupadi could be turned against them if beautiful women were used to seduce the brothers. Or maybe Bhima could be secretly killed. He was the mainstay of the Pandavas' power, and without him they could easily be overpowered. Duryodhana concluded, O father, use whatever means you deem best. Somehow we must bring the Pandavas under our control without delay. Their strength increases with every passing day. The Kaurava prince turned to Karna and asked him for his option. Karna raised a clenched fist. His voice boomed out in reply. O Duryodhana, in my view, your suggestions are not well considered. I do not think that any intrigues will succeed against the Pandavas. You have already tried and failed in this way on various occasions. It will surely fail again. Karna pointed out that the Pandavas had formerly been living near them in Hastinapura. They had been mere children without allies or friends, and still Duryodhana's scheming had not been successful. Now the brothers were grown up, had secured powerful allies, and most importantly, were on their guard against the Kauravas. They would detect and thwart any plan Duryodhana set in motion. Nor would the Kauravas be able to break Draupadi's affection for her husbands. She chose them when they appeared as poor Brahmins. How would she reject them now that they were prosperous? Nor would the virtuous Drupada abandon them for the sake of wealth, even if the Kauravas offered him their entire kingdom. Karna's eyes flashed as he spoke. His natural golden armor gleamed in the shafts of sunlight that shone through the palace windows. He turned to the king and continued, O sire, here is what I think we should do. Before the brothers are fully established, let us strike them down on the battlefield. We must challenge them before Drupada has time to assemble his allies to fight alongside them, and before Krishna and Balaram can bring the mighty Yadava hosts from Mathura. Karna went on to praise strength and prowess as the cardinal virtues in Kshatriyas. He disliked Duryodhana and Shakuni's treacherous methods and would rather settle the issue in an honest trial of arms. That was the only noble way to tackle the Pandavas. The other three means of diplomacy, conciliation, bribery, or dissension, would all prove useless. The Kurus should immediately gather an army and march on Drupada's capital, crushing both him and the Pandavas at the same time. Then the world would be theirs to command, freed of thorns. I wonder how he plans to do that. Karna was also there when Duryodhana attacked Drupada, right? Duryodhana and brothers, when they attacked only Drupada, Karna was there and he was defeated. They were set in flight. So anyway, but he's saying now he will defeat Drupada and the Pandavas. Let's go and fight, he says. Dhṛtarāṣṭra praised Karna for his courageous speech. Turning his blind eyes toward the king of Anga, he said, turning his blind eyes, such words full of heroism and power surely befit you, O heroic one. But let us consult Bhishma, Drona, and Vidura before taking any action. These men will always counsel what is in our best interests. Dhritarashtra summoned his counselors. One by one, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Vidura arrived and sat upon the golden seats around the king's throne. When they were all settled in their places, the king told them the views of both Duryodhana and Karna and asked for their opinions. Bhishma spoke first. O Dhritarashtra, I can never consent to a quarrel with the Pandavas. Pandu's sons and your sons are equally dear to me. They deserve my protection equally. The Pandavas should be given half the kingdom. Of this there is no doubt. As much as you feel this kingdom to be your property, so too do the Pandavas feel it to be theirs. If it is not their birthright, then how can it ever be yours? Indeed, their claim comes before yours. Therefore conclude a treaty and hand over half of this kingdom to them. Do this for your own good. Bhishma then explained what would happen if they declined to make peace with the Pandavas. The Kauravas would be covered with dishonor. All virtuous men would censure them. Having lost their reputation, their existence would become useless. Bhishma looked around the council chamber as he spoke. It is fortunate for us that Kunti's sons still live. It is fortunate that Kunti herself still lives. And it is fortunate that the sinful Purochan met his end. From the day I heard that Kunti and her sons had perished in the fire, I could not face any living creature. Bhishma asked Dhritarashtra if he knew how the citizens felt. They had blamed the Pandavas' death on the king, that the brothers had survived would repair his reputation. Dhritarashtra should now take advantage of that good fortune and make amends with the Pandavas by awarding them their kingdom. They were virtuous, united, and ever protected by the Supreme Lord. Even Indra with all the gods could not deprive them of their rights. If you desire justice, the welfare of all, and my pleasure, then give half the kingdom to these boys. Bhishma sat down, looking across at Duryodhana, who breathed heavily and ground his teeth. The prince stared at the floor as Drona stood up to speak. O sire, it is said that counselors should always speak what is right, true, and conducive to the king's welfare and fame. My opinion then is the same as Bhishma's. Return the kingdom to the Pandavas. Send a messenger skilled in diplomacy to Drupada, along with many gifts, and tell him how the alliance of his house with the house of Kuru has enhanced your power and dignity. O king, this will undoubtedly be in your best interests. Drona advised that Drupada be told how happy both Dhritarashtra and his son have become by all that has happened. The Pandavas should be brought back in state to Hastinapura. They should then be installed in their paternal kingdom. This was the people's desire. The Pandavas are no less Dhritarashtra's sons than his own offspring. He should treat them equally. When Drona finished speaking, Karna sprang from his seat. He could take no more. Breathing heavily, his brow furrowed, he thundered, how surprising that these two so-called ministers should tender such advice. Although you have supported them, O king, They do not look to your good. While concealing the wickedness in their hearts, they speak words purporting to be in your interests. Karna fumed. Bhishma and Drona's advice was useless. A man's happiness and distress depend upon destiny alone. Another person's acts could in no way affect anyone. Everything was fixed by fate. If in the course of destiny Dhritarashtra had acquired the throne, then who could oppose that? Why should they fear the Pandavas? Dhritarashtra had become king by fate's arrangement, and if fate decreed it, then he would remain in that position, no matter what anyone said or did. Karna looked angrily at both Bhishma and Drona as he concluded his speech. These two have spoken out of fear of or favoritism toward the Pandavas. O king, judge for yourself the motives of your ministers, then do what you feel is right. Dhritarashtra remained silent, but Drona again spoke out. Karna, you have spoken only out of envy of the Pandavas. Due to your attachment for Duryodhana, you desire only to injure the Pandavas. You should know that what I have said is certainly for the benefit of this house. If we act otherwise, then in my opinion, the Kurus will be exterminated. Vidur had been observing the situation closely. Now it was his turn to speak. He could see by Dhritarashtra's demeanor and silence that he was uncertain. The intelligent minister stood and addressed the king. O sire, after careful consideration, I cannot think of anyone who are better friends to you than Bhishma and Drona. They have spoken what is for your certain good, but you do not accept their advice. The foolish Karna may disagree with them, but their words are meant only for your welfare. It has never been seen that they gave you bad advice at any time. They are experienced, wise, and learned in scripture. Neither of them are in any way less than Rama, the great son of Dasharath. They regard your sons and the Pandavas with equal eyes. Why then do you disregard their counsel? Vidur then gave his own views of the situation. Dhritarashtra's partiality toward his own sons would lead to his downfall. The Pandavas were powerful and they were fixed in virtue. They could not be overcome by force. Indeed, they were capable of withstanding even the gods in battle. Besides the mighty Drupada, they had Krishna and Balaram as allies. There was no doubt that whatever there was Krishna, there would be victory. Sorry, there was no doubt that wherever there was Krishna, there would be victory. Standing before Dhritarashtra, Vidur spoke firmly. Wash away, O king, the stain of ill repute brought about by the incident at Varanavat. Please the citizens of this state, do what is just and proper, and give to the Pandavas what is rightfully theirs. If you listen to the sinful advice of Duryodhana, Shakuni, and Karna, your kingdom and fortune will surely be annihilated. Dhritarashtra remained silent for some minutes. As much as he desired the advancement of his own sons over that of the Pandavas, he could not deny the truth of Vidur's words. Placing his hand upon his scepter, he said, The learned Bhishma, the Rishi Drona, and your illustrious self, O Vidura, have all spoken the truth about what is good for me. The Pandavas are certainly my sons and are entitled to this kingdom. Go, O Vidura, and bring them here along with their mother. Bring too the celestial beauty Draupadi. By good fortune the Pandavas live. By good fortune have they obtained Drupada's daughter as their wife. By good fortune our strength has now increased, and by good fortune the wicked Purochan is dead. Everyone is blaming Purochan. He was just an instrument. Dhritarashtra dismissed the assembly. Duryodhana and Karna stormed out, closely followed by Dushasana and the other Kaurava princes. Vidur left and made preparations to go immediately to Kampilya, while the blind king was led back to his chambers by his servants. Early the next morning, Vidur departed for the Panchala kingdom. He took with him numerous jewels and various kinds of wealth for Drupada, the Pandavas, and Draupadi. A large contingent from Dhritarashtra's army accompanied him, as he made his way along the smooth forest roads. Vidur had heard that Krishna had gone to Kampilya to visit the Pandavas, and he felt excited at the prospect of seeing that all powerful personality as well as his beloved nephews. So Krishna went back and then came back, right? Because he went and he sent gifts. When he arrived at Kampilya, Drupada received him with honor, and the Pandavas were overjoyed to see him. They greeted him with tears in their eyes and touched his feet. The old minister embraced each of the brothers warmly. Krishna then came forward and bowed before Vidura, who embraced him, feeling a surge of ecstatic love. He gazed at Krishna for some moments, and the Yadava smiled affectionately at him. Vidur then offered Draupadi brilliant golden ornaments studded with diamonds and rubies, and Drupada a heap of shining gems. When they were all seated in Drupada's council chamber, Vidur said, O king, along with your sons and ministers, please hear the message I bring from Dhṛtarāṣṭra. He and his sons and ministers have repeatedly asked after your welfare. Your beloved friend Drona has mentally embraced you and sent his warmest greetings. All of the Kuru elders are overjoyed at our new alliance. They feel as if they have acquired a new kingdom. Knowing all this, O sire, please permit the Pandavas to go to Hastinapur. The Kurus long to see them again. Vidur described how much the people in Hastinapur were anxious to see the brothers return with their new bride. He hoped the Pandavas themselves were desiring to again see their own home. Would Drupada allow them to enter their own city in state? Drupada smiled. O wise Vidura, it is surely proper for these boys to return to their ancestral kingdom, but it is not proper for me to tell them to leave. Let them decide for themselves. Let us also consult Krishna, for he is always interested in what is best for the Pandavas. Yudhishthir stepped forward and said that he and his brothers were now dependent upon Drupada. They would do whatever the king commanded. Krishna said, in my view, the Pandavas should go to Hastinapur, but we should all abide by Drupada's opinion, for the king is learned in all aspects of virtue. Drupada agreed with Krishna. These princes are now as dear to me as they are to Vasudeva. No one is more their well-wisher than Krishna, and he will only counsel what is for their own good. Let them depart for Hastinapur. Soon they were ready to leave. The Pandavas made their fond farewells to Drupada and his sons. The old king and his wife shed tears as their daughter mounted the chariot with Kunti. They stood with the other Kuru elders outside the palace as the Pandavas proceeded slowly down the royal highway toward the city gate. Krishna went with them on his own splendid golden chariot, and with great pleasure they all journeyed together to Hastinapur. So Krishna is also going to Hastinapur with them. They entered the city like a line of celestials entering Amaravati, Indra's splendid city. The citizens thronged the streets. Everyone longed to see the Pandavas again. They crowded around the brothers as the procession moved slowly along the main road toward Dhṛtarāṣṭra's palace. The Pandavas could hear people's exclamations. The best of men, Yudhishthir, has returned at last. That exalted soul knows the precepts of virtue. He regards us as if we were his nearest relatives. Today it seems that Pandu himself, beloved of the people, has come back from the forest. If we have ever given charity, if we have ever performed sacrifice, if we have any ascetic merits, then let the Pandavas live here for 100 years. The brothers smiled and raised their hands in blessings. Their eyes streamed with tears as they again saw their city and its people. Soon they saw Dhṛtarāṣṭra and Bhishma, who had come out on the road to meet them. The king and his minister embraced the Pandavas, who in turn greeted their elders with due reverence, touching their feet and bowing before them with folded hands. Yudhishthir then inquired after the welfare of the kingdom and its people. Yudhishthir then inquired after the welfare of the kingdom and its people and was told that everything was flourishing. Gradually the party moved into Dhṛtarāṣṭra's palace. Having been worshipped by the Kuru elders, Krishna followed behind them. Duryodhana's wife Dushala, sister, right? It says Duryodhana's wife. So met Draupadi and Kunti and accompanied them into Gandhari's quarters. As Gandhari embraced Draupadi, she thought of the prophetic voice that had spoken when Draupadi first stepped out of the fire. Yes. It was said that she would be the death of the world's Kshatriyas. The blindfolded queen had developed a powerful inner vision due to her austerities. She could understand that Draupadi was destined to cause her son's destruction. Wow. Still, Gandhari felt no malice toward Draupadi. She had resigned herself to the eventuality of fate. Duryodhana was wicked and selfish. His brothers followed him blindly. Surely they will reap their rightful reward. All-powerful providence controlled everything. Men were simply instruments driven by desire and hate. The queen blessed Draupadi and then warmly greeted her old friend Kunti. In Dhṛtarāṣṭra's it's a mistake. In Dhṛtarāṣṭra's council chamber, the king spoke before the Pandavas in a trembling voice. It is with joy that I sit here today with Pandu's sons. The gods have surely been merciful to the Kurus in that these 5 heroic brothers still live, so that no further disputes may arise between us. I want to give the Pandavas half the kingdom. O Yudhishthir, my child, go to Indraprastha. This shall be your half of the kingdom. Live there peacefully. Bhishma and Vidur looked at one another but said nothing. Krishna, who was sitting upon a splendid seat of gold and jewels, and who appeared like the sun illuminating the assembly, smiled, and he heard the king's proposal. He knew the region the king was so generously offering to the Pandavas. He knew that region. Indraprastha was a vast area, and it was certainly half the kingdom, but it was nothing but jungle and desert. There were no cities, not even any settlements. Although it had once been the site of the Kuru's capital, a rishi had long ago cursed that land when he felt offended by a Kuru king. It was now a wasteland. Yudhishthir looked respectfully at Dhṛtarāṣṭra. He felt no anger or resentment at the unfairness of the settlement. His elders represented the supreme. Their orders should be followed without question. The prince looked across at Krishna, who was still smiling. Yudhishthir was sure with his assistance they would be able to make the Khandava region habitable land. With palms folded, the Pandava acknowledged Dhritarashtra's gift. It shall be so, my lord. The next day the king arranged for Yudhishthir's coronation. With all pomp and ceremony, the prince became king of Indraprastha, with Vyasadeva appearing in time to perform the rituals. After the coronation, the Pandavas arranged to depart. Having worshipped the gods and taken their leave from the Kuru elders, they left with Krishna at the head of their procession. The sage Vyasadeva also accompanied them as they journeyed to the northern region of Khandava. So Krishna is going and also Vyasadeva is going with the Pandavas. With his assistance, the brothers selected an auspicious tract of land upon which to found a city. He performed the appropriate Vedic rites to invoke the god's presence. Then Krishna sat with the rishi and summoned Indra. The deity appeared, blazing like fire. He bowed before Krishna and asked, "What shall I do for you at this time, my lord?" Krishna asked him to arrange for a city to be constructed for the Pandavas. He told Indra to sprinkle his heavenly nectar across the land so that it would again become rich and fertile. Saying, "So be it," Indra called for Visvakarma, the architect of the gods. After being instructed by Indra, he began work on the city. All around the site, granite walls rose to the skies. Visvakarma constructed white palaces and mansions whose windows looked like the divine eagle Garuda's outstretched wings. The city was protected by massive dark gates that resembled clouds. No weapon could assail them. Deadly darts and other missiles were placed along the tops of the defensive ramparts. The turrets were filled with powerful men, all highly trained in warfare and with all weapons at their disposal. The city was then surrounded by delightful woods, full of blossoming and fragrant trees. Everywhere were lakes crowded with swans and lotus flowers. The city streets were wide and well designed, with pleasant groves and gardens between them. Pleasure houses stood in the vast public concourses, and there were countless temples dedicated to Vishnu and the heavenly deities. The Pandavas' own palace appeared like the heavenly Mount Meru, full of every opulence. It stood in the center of the city, surrounded by garrisons of warriors. So the warriors were also supplied by Lord Indra, Vishwakarma. Soon, Brahmins began to be attracted to the city, which had become known as Indraprastha. So now others from other places, Brahmins, started coming. They opened institutions where they taught all the Vedic sciences. Vaishyas also began to arrive, hoping to earn money by selling their goods. Gradually, craftsmen and artisans arrived, and within a short time the city was populated with pious citizens. It resembled Amaravati in the heavens. Being ruled with justice and compassion by Yudhishthir and his brothers, Indraprastha's people had everything they desired. They came to regard the Pandavas as affectionate fathers. Out of friendship for the Pandavas, Krishna remained in the city for some days. Arjuna and Krishna were especially close, and they spent much time together. Draupadi would also take every opportunity to serve Krishna, and she became very dear to him. A few days after Krishna's departure, the celestial seer Narada came to Indraprastha. Seeing the well-known rishi dressed in black deerskin and with his golden hair knotted on his head, Yudhishthir got off his throne and offered his obeisances. He then presented Narada with a fine golden seat encrusted with jewels and personally offered him the sacred arghya. King Yudhishthir washed the rishi's feet and welcomed him with gentle words. At Yudhishthir's command, Draupadi came before the sage and stood with folded palms. Narada offered the beautiful queen blessings and then dismissed her. When Draupadi had returned to her quarters, Narada said, "This illustrious princess is the wedded wife of all of you. You must establish a rule so that no dissension may arise between you over her. Listen as I tell you the ancient story of two celebrated asuras named Sunda and Upasunda. The two asuras belonged to the powerful race of Dānavas, the celestial demons. They were both sons of Nikumbha, a deadly enemy of the gods. The brothers were like one person divided into two. They lived together, ate together, and moved about together. Something like Jagai Madhai. The brothers were like one person. Okay. They always entertained the same purpose and were always equal to one another in both happiness and distress. By virtue of their long practice of rigid austerities, Sunda and Upasunda became extremely powerful. Having received a boon from Brahma that they could only die at each other's hands, they felt free to terrorize the universe. The gods could not check them. Finally, Brahma devised a way to destroy them. He created a woman of indescribable beauty, whom he named Tilottama. On Brahma's order, this Apsara went before the two brothers one day when they were intoxicated. Seeing her faultless form moving gracefully before them, both brothers immediately desired her. They began to argue. This woman shall be my wife and your sister. No, brother, I saw her first. She is mine. The argument became heated, and soon they fell upon one another with their fierce weapons. At last, They simultaneously smashed one another with their huge clubs and both fell to the ground dead. Narada concluded, thus, those two asuras, although ever united and inspired with the same desires, killed one another for the sake of a woman. You should make an arrangement so that no such quarrel may arise among yourselves. The Pandavas consulted one another in the Rishi's presence. Finally, they agreed that they would each spend a certain amount of time with Draupadi. If any of them saw another when he was alone with her, there would be a severe consequence. The offender would have to go to the forest for 1 year and have no contact with Draupadi during that time. After the Pandavas had made this rule, Narada took his leave, disappearing before their eyes. Carefully keeping their agreement, the brothers continued to live peacefully at Indraprastha. So we stop there for today. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Achitpriya Mataji?
Very nice, Mataji.
Mahabharata is
I
nice.
wonder how Draupadi managed all that, with the
Well, she's not an ordinary woman, so that's why. Yeah.
Yes.
So she's an expansion of Lakshmi Devi, it is said.
Yes. And she herself had to face this much struggles.
Struggle, of course, yeah.
I was happy. Then what are we?
Yeah. Nice.
Yes.
But they had Krishna with them all the time. That's why they were able to face.
Very nice. When you were reading Bhagavad Gita translations, I don't know many. I could not memorize in between slokas, right? So I was just listening as like Krishna's instructions, like I was listening.
Yeah. Yes, Mataji. So we do the same every day. So if you recite every day, then the idea is by repeating again and again. It's like it'll get registered gradually if we keep. And also it depends on how much we are able to. We want to do it and try to recollect. So there is effort from on our side also. But even if we simply heard and recited every day, that is also going to help. But it will be more if we tried from our side also to remember, then it will get nicely registered. But yeah, there is certainly benefit even if we simply heard it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Isha? Hare Krishna.
We can enjoy Mataji. No, she will be at home only, right? She doesn't know, I think, that you are taking this. Because Surya Mataji's mother.
Oh, Mataji attends so many classes. Maybe she's
be interested in just sitting and listening,
Okay.
He's quite senior, so she will be relaxed to just sit and listen, Mataji. You can just inform. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Isha.
So they said that Arjun, he said that he can't marry Draupadi ji because Yudhishthira Maharaj isn't married yet because he's the older brother. Then how did Bhimsen marry Hidimbi?
Nice. Yeah. How did Bhimsen marry Hidimbi? Well, it was Hidimbi's desire, right? She was that, and also he was not going to live with her all the time. Maybe in future he would call her. But yeah, that's a nice point. But the only thing I can see is, I mean, she didn't want to marry any of the others. It's a special circumstance. In Arjun's case, it's not that Draupadi was insisting that she should only marry Arjun, right? But in Hidimbi's case, she actually fell in love with Bhimsen and she was just following behind him and she was requesting, Yudhishthir Maharaj, Kunti Devi, like that. But still, was the marriage also like a properly, the marriage?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. That's all I can say. I don't know much. Anyone else would like to add anything to that? Your analysis? No. Okay. So we can end here. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We'll continue tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.